Designer clothes and million-dollar homes can't protect you from losing your children. These Real Housewives faced every parent's worst nightmare when courts, child protective services, and their own actions cost them custody. From supervised visits to complete estrangement, these stories prove fame can't shield you from devastating consequences. Meghan King's custody loss is the most recent and shocking case in Real Housewives history. The former Real Housewives of Orange County star lost temporary custody of her 3 children in November 2025 following an investigation by Child Protective Services. Meghan shares daughter Aspen, who's 8 years old, and 7-year-old twins Hart and Hayes with her ex-husband Jim Edmonds, the retired Major League Baseball player. The turning point came when a school employee filed a report with CPS. According to sources, the allegations involved Meghan administering unprescribed medication to one of her twin sons. The specifics of what medication and under what circumstances haven't been fully disclosed publicly, but whatever happened was serious enough that CPS launched a full investigation. Following that investigation, the courts granted Jim sole physical custody of all 3 children. Meghan was relegated to supervised visitation only, meaning she couldn't be alone with her own kids without a third party present. For any mother, this would be devastating. But for Meghan, who documented her entire parenting journey on Real Housewives of Orange County and social media, the loss was particularly public and humiliating. Her former RHOC castmate Tamra Judge reached out to Meghan after hearing the news. Tamra shared on the 2Ts in a podcast that Meghan was so devastated she didn't want to talk. She is so devastated. Her family is devastated. To have your children taken away from you by a third party, I couldn't even imagine, Tamra explained. Other RHOC stars showed support as well. Emily Simpson, Shannon Beador, and Gina Kirschenheiter attended a fundraiser shortly after the custody news broke and urged people not to judge Meghan without knowing the full story. Emily, who's dealt with her own parenting challenges, emphasized how unfair outside scrutiny can be. I have a lot going on with my son Luke, whom I have had for 6 months, and I would hate for someone to judge anything going on. I don't know the circumstances. I don't know the facts of this situation, so I don't want to speculate and make a judgment, Emily said. A court hearing was scheduled for December 2025 to determine whether the custody arrangement would become permanent or if Meghan could regain custody. Just before that hearing, Meghan and Jim reached an agreement. Under the new custody terms, the 3 children now live primarily with Jim in Tennessee, along with his new wife, Courtney Edmonds. Meghan, who's based in Missouri, gets a few weeks with them every summer. It's a dramatic reduction from the joint custody arrangement they'd had since their divorce was finalized in May 2021. The emotional weight of losing her children was visible over the holidays. While Jim posted photos on social media celebrating Christmas and daughter Aspen's birthday with the kids at a Tennessee ranch, Meghan was alone. She did reunite with the children for a brief visit in December, taking them to a holiday pop-up and a performance of A Christmas Story. On her Instagram stories, she posted a photo of a cracked sidewalk filled with colorful mosaic pieces with a message about filling the cracks with color and purpose. She's trying to stay positive and hopeful, but the reality is that her children now live primarily with their father, and she sees them only occasionally. What makes this case particularly heartbreaking is that it could have been prevented. Whether Meghan made a genuine mistake giving her child unprescribed medication, or whether there's more to the story we don't know, the consequences are severe and long-lasting. Child Protective Services doesn't remove children from homes lightly. There has to be credible evidence that a child's safety or well-being is at risk. For CPS to recommend supervised visitation means they believed Meghan posed some level of danger to her children, whether intentional or not. Katie Rost was an original cast member of The Real Housewives of Potomac when it premiered in 2016. She appeared as a former model, socialite, and mother of 3 young children. But behind the glamorous facade, Katie was struggling with addiction and facing a vicious custody battle with her ex-husband, Dr. James Orsini. That custody battle would ultimately cost her both her children and her reality TV career. In 2018, Katie took to Instagram to reveal that she'd lost custody of her 3 children to James. She posted that she hadn't seen her kids in over a month and that police had been called on her the last 2 times she tried to have parenting time with them. The courts had sided with James. stripping Katie of custody despite her desperate efforts to maintain a relationship with her children. While the specific reasons for the custody loss weren't made public at the time, Katie's struggles with substance abuse were well documented on social media and in court filings. 2 years later, in 2020, Katie was still fighting to regain custody and see her children regularly. She told Page Six that there had been no shift in James's attitude, and he wasn't willing to work with her. There's a lot of court process still, which is extremely draining and frustratingly slow, she explained. She also revealed the staggering financial cost of the custody battle. I'm sending my new lawyer another $41,000 just so I can speak to my children, just so I can talk to them, Katie said. The fact that she had to pay tens of thousands of dollars just for the right to speak to her own children shows how completely she'd lost custody. The custody situation directly impacted Katie's role on Real Housewives of Potomac. After appearing as a main cast member in Season 1, she was demoted to a friend role in Season 2 and then disappeared from the show entirely after Season 3. Reports suggested that a judge had sent a letter to NBC preventing Katie from discussing the custody situation on camera. However, sources close to production clarified that the attorney sent a letter just to make sure their legal team knew what was in the custody agreement, but that there was no actual judicial order preventing her from filming. Katie's mother offered a different explanation. She said Katie wasn't invited back to RHOP because she didn't want to share all aspects of her life on camera, including her custody battle. The producers allegedly wanted her to discuss everything on the show, particularly accusations made by castmate Giselle Bryant, but Katie refused to exploit her children's situation for ratings. That decision cost her the platform and income that came with being a housewife. The tragedy of Katie's story is that her addiction and mental health struggles played out publicly, while she simultaneously lost the most important relationships in her life. Her children were removed from her care. Her reality TV career ended, and despite spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on legal fees, she still couldn't regain custody or even regular visitation with her kids. It's a cautionary tale about how quickly everything can fall apart when addiction takes over. Tamra Judge's situation is different from the others on this list because she didn't technically lose custody in a legal sense, but the emotional reality is just as painful. Her daughter, Sydney Barney, chose to live with her father full-time after Tamra's contentious divorce from Simon Barney, and Sydney has been estranged from Tamra for over a decade. Tamra and Simon split in 2011 after filming their divorce on Real Housewives of Orange County. It was ugly and public, with accusations flying on both sides. They had a 50-50 custody agreement for their 3 children, Sydney, Spencer, and Sophia. But shortly after the divorce, 14-year-old Sydney told her mother she didn't want to live with her anymore. My oldest daughter, Sydney, said, "I don't want to live with you anymore. You've ruined my dad's life," Tamra tearfully revealed at the RHOC Season 11 reunion in 2016. Sydney left that day and has not come back. Sydney's decision devastated Tamra, but what made it worse was Sydney's public explanation for why she left. In August 2017, then 18-year-old Sydney posted on Facebook accusing her mother of being neglectful, constantly putting herself first, and being mentally and emotionally abusive. "She was no mother to me," Sydney wrote. She said the reasons she left weren't about the divorce itself, but about Tamra's toxic behavior. Sydney also called out Tamra for continuing to discuss her on the show, despite Sydney begging her not to. "The only reason I am not living with her is because she continues to do the things that pushed me out of her house, like talking about me on the show, press, and social media, doing embarrassing things on the show, lying to me, and putting herself first, to name a few," Sydney explained. She wanted privacy and a life away from reality TV cameras, but Tamra couldn't or wouldn't give her that. The estrangement has lasted over a decade now. Throughout RHOC seasons, Tamra has broken down crying over Sydney multiple times. She got a tattoo of the angel number 111 and told daughter Sophia that every time she sees that number, she makes the same wish that maybe one day Sydney will come home. In therapy sessions filmed for the show, Tamra admitted that Sydney never really gave her a chance and that most of the time she just buries the pain. Tamra's former co-star Vicki Gunvalson called her out in September 2024 for not doing enough to repair the relationship. "If my daughter didn't talk to me, I'd be on a flipping plane right now, knocking on her door, begging her for forgiveness, and I don't even care what I did," Vicky said on her podcast. She accused Tamra of choosing the show over her daughter. Sydney has a very strong opinion of Tamra. Stop embarrassing the family. Stop doing what you're doing. Get off the show when you have a chance. Tamra did none of that, Vicky explained. There has been some recent progress. In November 2025, at the RHOC Season 19 reunion, Tamra revealed that Sydney had come to her house to have lunch with Sophia. Tamra went outside, and they hugged and talked for about 30 minutes. When Sydney said, "Mom, can I hug you goodbye?" Tamra held on to her and said, "I can't let you go. I just can't let you go." It was a really special moment, according to Tamra, and she believes Sydney is coming around. But even with that hopeful reunion, Sydney doesn't live with Tamra. She hasn't for over 10 years. While Tamra celebrates Sydney's success in the film industry from afar, she does so as an estranged parent who lost her daughter not to a court order, but to her own choices. The decision to prioritize reality TV fame over her daughter's request for privacy cost Tamra a relationship that may never fully heal. Jodie Clayman appeared on The Real Housewives of Vancouver when it premiered in 2012. But her custody battle with her ex-husband Eron Friedlander became one of the most contentious and expensive in Real Housewives history. Jodie initially had sole custody of their 8-year-old daughter, but after a lengthy court battle, Friedlander was granted sole custody instead. The court didn't just remove custody from Jodie, they also ordered her to pay nearly $600,000 in damages to Friedlander. The financial penalty suggests the court found significant wrongdoing on Jodie's part, though the specific details of what she did weren't widely reported. What is known is that despite being granted joint custody at one point during the proceedings, Jodie breached the custody arrangement and was found in contempt of court. Losing custody of her daughter, while also owing over $500,000 to her ex-husband, was a double blow that effectively ended Jodie's time in the public eye. Real Housewives of Vancouver only lasted 2 seasons before being canceled, and Jodie disappeared from reality television entirely after her custody loss became public. Looking at these custody cases together, several patterns emerge. First, substance abuse and mental health issues are often at the root of custody losses. Katie Rost's addiction struggles were well documented. Meghan King's case involved allegations about medication. Even Tamra's situation involved Sydney accusing her mother of creating a toxic and mentally unhealthy environment. Second, putting reality TV fame ahead of children's well-being rarely ends well. Katie was allegedly told she couldn't discuss her custody battle on camera and chose to leave rather than exploit her kids. Tamra continued discussing Sydney on the show despite Sydney begging her not to, which contributed to their estrangement. The pressure to provide dramatic storylines can push housewives to cross boundaries that damage their relationships with their children. Third, once custody is lost, it's incredibly difficult to get back. Meghan reached a settlement that gives her only a few weeks per summer with her kids. Katie spent over $41,000 just to be able to talk to her children and still doesn't have regular custody. The courts prioritize stability for children, and once a custody arrangement is changed, judges are reluctant to disrupt it again without clear evidence that the situation has improved. Fourth, supervised visitation is a red flag that courts have serious concerns about a parent's ability to safely care for their children. Both Meghan and Katie were relegated to supervised visits, meaning they posed enough of a perceived risk that they couldn't be trusted alone with their own kids. That's not a label that's easily overcome. Finally, the public nature of these custody battles adds an extra layer of pain and humiliation. Most parents going through custody disputes suffer privately, but housewives endure their worst moments in front of cameras and tabloid headlines. Their children see the coverage. Their ex-husbands use it against them in court. The entire world weighs in with opinions and judgments about their fitness as mothers. Losing custody is every parent's nightmare, and these Real Housewives learned that fame can't protect you from devastating consequences. Whether through CPS investigations, addiction struggles, or putting TV before family, these women paid the ultimate price. Subscribe for more Real Housewives deep dives and untold stories.